No contract extension just yet for Geno Smith, and it doesn't seem to be a problem for the Silver and Black. That plus more on Monday's edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast for March 17th, 2025.
You are Locked On Raiders, your daily Las Vegas Raiders podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome in, Raider Nation, to another edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast. Thank you so much for making the show your first listen of the day. We definitely appreciate you. If you're catching the show wherever you find your favorite podcast, or you're checking us out by way of the YouTube page, we definitely appreciate that in a major way. I say it all the time. The show continues to grow, and that's because of your consistent support, Raider Nation, and because of the job that my man Ari does behind the scenes on the YouTube page, making us look good and sound good each and every day. We definitely appreciate you and him in a major way. So shout out to Ari. He's on Twitter at Ari Produces. You can hit me up as well at your boy Q254. And we got the Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line if you want to be a part of the show, 707-654-4693. As a matter of fact, we'll get as much calls and texts in segment number 3 as we close out the show. A ton of feedback, a lot of different subjects that we've been talking about, from quarterback to free agency, and a lot more. I'll try to get as many in as possible. You know, we have time restraints around here on the Locked On Raiders podcast, so we try to push them every once in a while. Don't try to make the show too lengthy, but we'll try to get as much feedback in as possible. Segment number 3. Segment number 2, we talk about the national media quite a bit and what they do or what they don't do when it comes to the Raiders, and a lot of times it's, they don't talk about the Raiders, and if they do, it's always negative. Well, when we're talking about being a serious team, unserious team, or for entertainment purposes only, we talk about the Raiders as they continue to start making serious-type decisions. It seems like the conversation from the national media, people on the outside, is becoming more serious with the Raiders. So you'll hear from Steve Wyche and Cameron Wolfe, both from NFL Network, and you also hear from former wide receiver, NFL wide receiver for a long time, Harry Douglas, part of Freddie and Harry on ESPN Radio. He was actually in town in Las Vegas on Friday, so you'll hear what he had to say about the Silver and Black. Just a nice little compilation of conversations about the Raiders. That'll be in segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Here in segment number 1, just news and notes around free agency, Geno Smith, and more. We'll jump right into it after I tell you about the title sponsor of the show, which is FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So, off top, Geno Smith is the big name. That's the big piece of news that we've been looking for, we've been waiting for. One, we're waiting for him to actually be introduced to the media, have the formal press conference, as the rest of the free agents that have signed have already done so. And I'm expecting that once the contract extension is finally agreed on, that's when they're going to have that. I thought the contract extension was going to happen by Sunday because he had a $16 million roster bonus that had to be paid by the Raiders by Sunday at 1 p.m. Pacific time. So I figured that by sometime before then, there would be a contract extension. Well, that time came and went, and there was no word of a contract extension. So there's multiple reasons for that. One, the Raiders might not be worried about it. They might not be worried about a contract extension. They might not be in a hurry for that contract extension. They might not worry about that $16 million roster bonus and the $31 million cap hit because they are in really good position as far as the salary cap goes. You saw what they did with Max Crosby's contract, where the majority of his cap hit came in the first 2 years of that extension. So that's this year and next year. So they might not really be worried about it, right? They might not be looking at the salary cap saying, well, we need to lower it, so we have to go ahead and hurry up with this extension. Because again, I thought it would have been done by Sunday, and it wasn't. Now, that doesn't mean it won't get done today. By the time you're listening to it, it already might be done, right? We might be talking about 3 years, $45 million a year. I mean, whatever. Like, it could be something that's on the way, and they just aren't worried about it. They could have also maybe pushed back the date of when he was going to get that roster bonus, and we just don't know it. So that's also an element to think about. So, again, nothing to panic about. I did think it was kind of funny, and I know that Shedeur Sanders does a really good job of, social media and letting everybody, know what he's doing and where he's doing it at and who he's hanging out with. I don't know if you saw the picture that was floating around social media on Sunday, and I saw it on Twitter, was him and Geno Smith in Florida together. And so it was funny. A lot of people were tweeting out maybe this is potential teammates in 2025. Obviously, Geno Smith, the Raiders quarterback, and Shedeur Sanders potentially could be, but he's been, doing everything he can to tie himself to the Giants, tie himself to the Browns, tie himself to the Raiders. I mean, he does everything he needs to do to make sure that he's out there, people see him and hear from him. And again, I thought that was kind of a funny picture to see him and Geno Smith in the same room together, basically hanging out together. And obviously that was put out there on social media on Sunday. So it could mean something. It could mean absolutely nothing. Again, I don't take a whole lot that I see from pictures on social media to mean a whole lot, but I did find it kind of funny, especially since I was continuing to watch and look and thinking that we were going to hear about a Geno Smith contract extension, and none of that happened. On Friday, found out about the Raiders losing another free agent that they had on the defensive side of the ball, Marcus Epps. He makes the trip to New England, because why wouldn't he, right? The Patriots seem like they are all of a sudden becoming the New England Raiders, right? There was a time when we were talking about the Raiders were becoming the Las Vegas Patriots. Now it's the role has changed. So Marcus Epps agrees to a one-year deal with the Patriots worth $4.4 million. Remember, Robert Spillane, they agreed to a 3-year deal with him. They got K'Lavon Chase on a one-year deal. Now they got Marcus Epps. They all are now members of the Patriots. So, again, I know that a lot of Raider Nation gets frustrated when they see guys being lost from the team and not that many guys being signed, all these deals going through. But the Raiders are being very, as a matter of fact, and very kind of particular with the guys that they bring back and the guys that they're bringing in. They haven't made any huge splashes with guys outside of the building. Obviously, the trade for Geno Smith was a big deal, and the contract extension that they gave Max Crosby also was a big deal. But every other move that they've made has just been kind of slow and steady, and I think that's okay, right? I say it all the time. You don't have to win March. March is not going to do anything to help you win games in the regular season. The Raiders have been that team that has won March before. It doesn't do anything for you. You got to make the right decisions, not only in the free agency, but the draft throughout the course of the offseason, and prepare yourself for the regular season. Also, former Raiders assistant GM Champ Kelly was hired by the Dolphins as a senior personnel executive working in both pro and college scouting. Really happy for Champ. They agreed to mutually part ways not too long ago, a few weeks back. So to see that Champ Kelly has another opportunity, he's now going to be a part of the Miami Dolphins front office. I've said it a million times. I'll say it a million more. He's a guy that will be a GM of his own team sooner rather than later. He's a guy that's got a lot of respect around the league. I have a lot of respect for him. Not that I'm anybody, but I have a lot of respect for him just getting to know him over the few years that he was in Vegas with the Raiders. Really good dude. I know how much he has, respect around the league. And so there's a team sooner rather than later that's going to hire him to be a GM, and they're going to get a really good one. So congratulations to Champ Kelly. I wish that, he had an opportunity to continue to work for the Raiders. Because again, like I said, I always enjoyed our conversations. I always thought he was a really good dude, and he's going to do some really good things in Miami and wherever he chooses to go. There's a reason why he keeps getting jobs, because he's a really good dude, and he does his job at a very high level. So big ups to Champ Kelly being hired by the Miami Dolphins. Also, over the weekend, Mekhi Becton agreed to a 2-year deal with the Chargers. Man, that Chargers offensive line, I'm not going to say I'm sitting here looking at him like I'm jealous or anything, but that offensive line, they're trying to create a monster there in L.A. I mean, they got Joe Alt. That was their first pick in the Jim Harbaugh era. Of course, they had Rashawn Slater there already, and now you got Mekhi Becton. Like, that's going to be a big, monstrous offensive line that the Chargers agreed to a deal with. And, it's funny because I talked about Becton and was saying, man, I wouldn't mind if the Raiders went out and made that move. Pete Carroll at the Combine was talking about he thought that the offensive line was pretty good in 2024. And so maybe, they really do believe that the Raiders offensive line is in better shape than we thought. They did sign Alex Kappa to be a depth piece. He comes over from the Bengals, and obviously he didn't have a very good year last year, but knows Tom Brady very well from his time in Tampa Bay, where they won a Super Bowl together. Also re-signed Jordan Meredith, who was a key contributor on that offensive line for the Raiders in 2024. JPJ obviously is going to move to center with Andre James being released. So maybe they're feeling really good, and they don't think that they need to go out and really spend some good money on that offensive line. I thought it needed to continue to be, evolved, but maybe not, and maybe they're going to spend some time in the draft with the offensive line. But Mekhi Becton goes to the Chargers on a 2-year deal. And how about this? It was for the final note here in segment number 1 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast, little news and notes. Jamar Chase and T. Higgins both extended in Cincinnati. That happened late Sunday night. Jordan Schultz from Fox NFL on Fox, he tweeted out, breaking, the Bengals wide receivers Jamar Chase and T. Higgins exclusively tell me they've agreed to a contract extension with the team. Jamar gets 4 years, $161 million, with $112 million guaranteed, making him the highest paid non-quarterback in NFL history. T gets 4 years, $115 million, with the first 2 years guaranteed, making him the highest paid wide receiver 2 in NFL history. And then he goes on to give some more details about the dynamic duo. So Jamar Chase is now under contract for the next 5 years at $182.8 million. T Higgins' deal can be worth over $30 million per year with incentives. He is a top 5 paid wide receiver in the NFL. So if you're the Cincinnati Bengals and you have Joe Burrow under contract, you have Jamar Chase under contract, you have T Higgins now under contract, you're basically going to try to win a shootout every week. Right, you're not really worried about your defense. I guess a lot of the defense they're going to try to address during the draft because, I mean, you can't pay everybody. So that's why they allowed Trey Hendrickson to be able to go out and try to seek a trade. That has not happened yet. But, man, that is a lot of money they're spending on the offensive side of things. But they said that they wanted to bring everybody back. And they, in fact, are trying to bring everybody back. They got their wide receivers, Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, and, of course, to go along with Joe Burrow. So that was a heck of a signing right there. And Cincinnati finally opened up their wallets because, you know, they're not the organization that spends the most money. They spend the most money on their 1 and 2 wide receivers there for Joe Burrow. But that's what I got for you for segment number 1 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast, news and notes of the day. Coming up, segment number 2, what is the national perspective of the Silver and Black as it stands right now under GM John Spytek and head coach Pete Carroll? You'll hear about it next here on the Locked On Raiders podcast. Before we get to that, though, I do want to tell you about a couple great sponsors here on the show, and the first is Monarch Money. Have you ever checked your bank account and wonder, where'd all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you just stop managing your money and start building wealth. There's so many different things. They have insights that'll help you manage your money better. It's all in one convenience. So instead of having to juggle multiple apps, you could use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan your long-term goals. And you can stay on the same page without stress, right? Just that's the biggest thing. You don't want to have any stress at all. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNFL for half off your first year. I also want to tell you about FanDuel. March Madness is here, and FanDuel is giving you the chance to get in on the action like never before. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 extra bucks to use on everything from buzzer beaters, Cinderella stories, even who's cutting down the nets. And I don't know if you were involved in Selection Sunday with both the men's and the women's tournament, but the brackets are set. So right now you can get involved in March Madness. You can say who's going to be the ones cutting down the nets, who are going to make the upsets, who's going to be the Cinderella story, all those great narratives and stories, and we start to learn who stars are in the tournament. Yeah, it is all time to go. It is go time. You can pick your favorites, game props, spreads, totals, whatever the case may be. You always want to stay in on the action. So to do that, visit FanDuel.com and get in on the college hoops action all tournament long. All right, Raider Nation, here we go. Segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Want to get into what the national media is saying and talking about when it comes to the Silver and Black. GM John Spytek is in place. Pete Carroll, the head coach, is in place. And, of course, it's once again turning over the controls, right? And so now we're talking about serious, unserious, and for entertainment purposes only team. The Raiders were that team poster child for the unserious team, right? That's according to my guy, Joe Fortenbaugh, part of Joe and Q on ESPN Radio. And so really when he broke it down the way he did in those 3 categories, it really caught my attention. And that's going to be my theme throughout the course of the year, only because I want to see how the Raiders continue to operate. Again, I think he said it perfectly when they were the poster childs for unserious teams, right? They're making decisions that other teams aren't making. They're hiring guys that don't have any experience. They're, putting guys in places and hoping that it works. He called it battleship football, right? Like, okay, A3, hey, that hit. A4, nope, that didn't hit. Okay, let's do something else, right? So that's basically what he was meaning by that. So now that GM John Spytek are in place, and he's very well respected across the league, and head coach Pete Carroll already has the resume, he already has the pedigree, you know what he brings to the table from his time in college and in the NFL. The narrative is starting to change. The decisions are starting to look like serious decisions they're making as a serious team. And I think the media, the national media, who we always talk about, they never talk about the Raiders. And when they do, it's always negative. I think they're starting to take notice as well. For example, Cameron Wolfe and Steve Weiss from NFL Network, they were talking on Friday about the moves that the Raiders have made. This was similar. This was soon after they came to an agreement with Raheem Mostert, who Cameron Wolfe, who covers the Miami Dolphins for NFL Network, knows really well. He had an opportunity to catch up and talk to him, but he also talked to multiple guys that are that the Raiders have agreed to deal with as free agents. So here's Cameron Wolfe and Steve Weiss both talking about, just kind of how they're looking at the Raiders right now so far under Spytek and Carroll.
Yeah, we've seen it the first few weeks of free agency that Pete Carroll's bringing in guys who can be physical, who can be tough. And a lot of times you hear a new regime talk about, hey, a plan, a 3-year plan or patience. This team wants to win now, and you can tell it by their signings. They go out and get Geno Smith, who a couple of execs I talked to thought he was the best veteran quarterback option available. You get him, a guy you're familiar with. He can establish the culture for your offense. They had a lot of success together in Seattle. You got a run game that was last in the NFL last year. You bring in a veteran and Raheem Mostert, who in 2023, he made a Pro Bowl, had over 20 touchdowns. He told me, I still got a lot of gas in the tank. And the first thing they told me is we're going to run the ball a lot, and I'm excited about it. But then you look at most of their moves on the defense side of the ball, and it really screams what they're trying to build. And I think one of the more underrated signings is linebacker Landon Roberts, a guy who has been a tone setter everywhere he goes, whether it's New England, Miami, or Pittsburgh. I talked to him this week. He said, Pete Carroll told me we want to be tough. We want to be physical. And he brings that. From what I've been told, he's going to be their Mike linebacker, their green dot, a guy to bring that physicality there. And so if I'm a Raiders fan, I'm excited about a team trying to win now and bringing in the right leaders to do it. Steve?
Yeah, Roberts can take the place of a very good player in Robert Spillane, who signed elsewhere in free agency. So that's going to be a big hole to fill. But look, Christian Wilkins is coming back from injury on that defensive front, on the defensive tackle. At defensive end, Malcolm Kuntz, who didn't play last year because of injury, he signs a 1-year, $12 million deal. He was an 8-sack guy opposite of Max Crosby in 2023. So defensively, they look set. What's intriguing to me, by Pete Carroll bringing in a Raheem Mostert, by signing, by making the trade for Geno Smith, that's people saying, okay, well, they're not going to draft Ashton Genty. They're not going to draft a quarterback at 6. Pete Carroll very well could. I mean, this is the one thing he does. They've got like 6 running backs in their contract right now. He wants competition to see who is going to emerge. So he is not going to be afraid, along with new GM John Spytek coming over from Tampa, where they built their wide receivers and the defensive front to draft duplicate players, to have depth and to have the best players on the field at all times at premium positions. So again, I think what you're seeing right now doesn't tip what they're going to do in free agency, even though you look on paper and you say, man, they've got to get better on the offensive line, and they've got to get more help at wide receiver.
Competitive, win now. Nothing is off the table just because what they've done so far in free agency. That means they could draft a running back as like Ashton Genty as high as number 6. Even though they have Geno Smith, they could still go get a quarterback. But a lot of being tough, physical, competitive, trying to win now. What exactly does that mean, trying to win now? I've said it a few times. I think it's going to be very similar to what we saw with Sean Payton his year 1 in Denver, where he ended up winning 8 games. And even then, I thought that they were a little bit ahead of schedule there. But with Geno Smith as the quarterback, I feel like the Raiders could be in that range. They could be in the 8-win range and feel really good about what they're doing. Look, that would double their win total from 2024. Right, this is a team that only won 4 games. So if they were to win 8 games, you could see that they're being really competitive. They're putting together a really competitive, physical, tough roster. You got to feel really good about the direction. And it's funny hearing what Cameron Wolfe and Steve Weiss were saying about the team. It tracks, right? It tracks with what Pete Carroll said to me and multiple of the folks that cover the Raiders, the local media that covers the Raiders when we were in Indianapolis out the scouting combine. When I asked them about what a John Spytek and a Pete Carroll team looks like, the non-negotiables is what I like to call it.
We've seen what your teams would look like when you've been a head coach other places. What is a John Spytek and Pete Carroll led team with the Raiders? What does that look like? What are the non-negotiables?
Yeah, you should see a team that plays with great effort. We start with effort. We critique effort first, because if you're not giving everything you got, what are you doing? What are you even in the program for? You're gonna see a team that plays with great enthusiasm and excitement for the game and love of the game. The passion shows up. You can feel their sense of love for what we're doing. And if the guys don't fit that, we're going to be looking for the guys that do fit that. We want a very physical team, very tough team. It's always been about great toughness on our club, and that comes in all different aspects, and it's highlighted by your special teams groups. Certainly what happens on defense and by running the football as well. And then we got to be really smart, So the elements of it are really great effort, great enthusiasm, great toughness, and playing smart football. That's when you see us play. That I hope you walk away and that's what you say about us. And I don't really give a hoot about what anybody else thinks of us. That's what we're going to establish for ourselves, and if it matches up, it gives us a chance to get to it the best that we have to offer. So it's a really clear outlook.
Love, enthusiasm, excitement, passion, toughness, physicality, right? And it's funny because guys that don't fit that won't be Raiders, right? And that's the thing. And so when we're talking about free agency, and I think that's why it's so important to bring that sound back up, just so you know what they're thinking and what he's thinking as the head coach. Guys that don't fit that mold of what he's talking about, again, love, enthusiasm, excitement, passion, toughness, physicality, the guys that don't fit that aren't going to be Raiders. And so when you see some guys walk out of the building, obviously they are leaving for money. When you see a Spillane get $37 million, you see Merritt get $50 million, you see Hobbs get money, but they all getting paid. But somehow, some way, they might not be fitting every one of those categories that he's looking for. So that's always something to keep into consideration, and especially when you start to see the guys that they bring in. Right? When you start to see the Jeremy Chins, when you start to see the Eric Stokes, when you see the Lonnie Johnson Jr.'s, right? When you see guys like that, the Landon Roberts, right? Guys like that, you want those guys that have chips on their shoulders, something to prove, right? Guys that feel like that they've been overlooked, been slept on. Even guys like Roberts, E-Rob, who's been in the league 10 years and won multiple Super Bowls, still has something to prove. That's the kind of guys that they're trying to bring into the mix. So again, love, enthusiasm, excitement. Finally, I want you to hear from Harry Douglas. He was a longtime NFL wide receiver, 10 plus years in the league. He was in Vegas. He's part of Freddie and Harry on ESPN Radio. So he was at my radio station on Friday, and he came into the last hour of the show. And so I thought, hey man, let me ask you a couple questions about the Raiders. Because again, not only are you national media, you're a guy that's been there, done that. So you know what it looks like. You know what it's supposed to look like. And you could tell when a team is serious, unserious, or for entertainment purposes only. So here's a quick back and forth between myself and Harry Douglas on Friday. What did you think about Geno Smith, the Raiders making that move to go ahead and trade for him?
I love it. I actually thought the Pittsburgh Steelers should have done it. I thought the Pittsburgh Steelers should have went and traded not just for DK Metcalf, but also for the quarterback Geno Smith. You talk about a guy, right, who, was drafted, played for the Jets organization. A lot of people didn't like him in that light, but then went to Seattle. And Geno said a lot of people wrote me off, but I didn't write back. So what he's been able to do for them the last 3 years, I really appreciate him. Number one, believing in himself, not giving up, and understanding that there was still great ball to be played from the quarterback position from him as an individual. Now you look at the Las Vegas Raiders, and a big question mark coming into the 2025 season was the quarterback position. What were they going to do? Were they going to draft someone? I believe they have the 6th overall pick, right?
Yep, number 6.
Were they going to draft someone with the 6th overall pick? Well, Tom Brady, being a minority owner, we've seen he's been hands-on a lot more this time around with this organization, and they're making a lot of moves. And, Tom Brady understands in this business, if you do not have a quarterback, you don't stand a chance. And specifically in the AFC West, as a division, if you don't have a quarterback and a head coach. So it starts with the head coach first. You went and got Pete Carroll, a known proven winner, not just in the NFL, but also at the collegiate level. You have that in stone. So the quarterback was missing. You made that trade for Geno Smith, and I like the direction that the Las Vegas Raiders are going in.
So with that being said, it takes us to the draft. As you mentioned, the Raiders are picking at number 6. I know that you and Freddie talked to Mel Kiper earlier today. Fantastic stuff. What do you think about Shedeur at 6 if he's available?
I believe you take him. You have to. But the connection between him and Tom Brady, the moxie, he's meant for Vegas. And what good is it to have Allegiant Stadium, this nice, big, attraction here, if you can't pack it out with fans because they have something to believe in? Now, even though you traded for Geno Smith, if you draft that quarterback, then, hey, you probably don't have to give Geno Smith an extension, right? You allow him to do his thing, but you have Shedeur Sanders. He doesn't have to rush and play. I know he would love to play right out of the gate, but we've seen quarterbacks have success not playing their first year. The best quarterback in the league right now is Patrick Mahomes. What did he do his first year? He sat behind Alex Smith. I actually played against them twice And Patrick Mahomes came back that following year to throw 50 touchdowns and 5,000 yards. So it's not necessarily a bad thing if a young quarterback 6'4" a year get acclimated to the system and that whole nine. So I would like it if the Raiders still drafted Shador at number 6. Now, if they do not do that, then you look at the extension for Geno Smith, and then also I think at number 6 you have a guy in Ashton Jeanty who played for my offensive coordinator I had with the Atlanta Falcons and Dirk Cutter at Boise State. And I text Dirk before the season even started about the leaders on his team and Ashton Jeanty, and he had nothing but great things to say about Ashton. But the vision, the balance, the burst, the ability to have the explosive runs and put the ball in the end zone. You look at this run game for the Las Vegas Raiders right now, it's non-existent. That's an area they have to improve in 2025.
So you would have no problem, even though it's a running back, it's number 6 overall, and the Raiders have other holes as well. No problem investing in the running back there.
No, not at all, because we all know, look at the National Football League. A lot of people wanted to devalue the running back position, but, through and through wholeheartedly when playoffs come around, if you're not balanced, if you don't have a balanced attack and you're one-dimensional, you're not winning the Super Bowl.
So, again, he likes the direction that the Raiders are going. And it's not just lip service. It's, watching, observing, seeing who they bring in, what they bring in. You hear him talking about the quarterback position. He loved the acquisition of Geno Smith, thought that the Steelers should do it, right? I talked about the Steelers last week, and I was very, as a matter of fact, about them because they're still sitting there holding the bag. They're still sitting there wondering who their quarterback's going to be. Right now, it's Mason Rudolph. That's not who they want to go into the season with. Like, they are really backed up against the wall, and that is so un-Steeler-like, right? I know we're talking about the Raiders here, but, man, it is so un-Steeler-like. So you hear what Harry said. I thought that the Steelers should have made a move for Geno Smith. That would have been a really good option, especially since they went and made the move for DK Metcalf, right? It would have been a nice 1-2 punch, and they're familiar with each other. But it's just – again, the narrative starts to change. I'm not saying that means that they're out of the woods. It doesn't mean that they're a complete serious team and they're going to go win 10 games and go to the playoffs. But it takes a series of serious decisions and the right decisions. You make those, you all of a sudden get yourself into the serious conversation. When Pete Carroll got hired, the first thing I said is they got stability there. John Spytek comes from Tampa Bay. He knows all things stability, right? Coming from the Jason Light tree. I mean, that's what they have there in Tampa Bay, and they have a really good front office that makes a lot of good decisions, especially when it comes to the draft. So that's how you're going to build this team. So I just wanted to bring that along whenever I can get some sound like that, and positive or negative. Right? I mean, because it's not a one-sided conversation here. When there's some negativity out there, when someone's questioning what the Raiders are doing, we'll bring that to the table as well. But I just think it's important when people are talking about the Raiders to make sure we bring it to the front of the congregation, right? And let you hear what they've got to say, good or bad. And in this case, with Cameron Wolfe and Steve Weish and even Harry Douglas, it was good. Coming up in segment number 3, what's on your mind? Your calls and texts are next at 707-654-4693.
The NCAA tournament is here, and so is the Bracket Breakdown.
Locked On Podcast Network and Amazon Fire TV channels are teaming up to deliver NCAA tournament coverage like never before. Watch studio shows featuring former players and Locked On's local experts as they guide you through every upset, buzzer beater, and bracket matchup.
Stream it all for free on Amazon Fire TV channel. Search Bracket Breakdown to see it all for free.
It's your team every day.
Here we go, Raider Nation. Segment number 3 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Your calls and texts straight off that Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line, 707-654-4693. Let's go to this one. YTD33 from up north, a.k.a. Proto from Vancouver. He is calling why he doesn't, and talking about why he doesn't think Jeanty at 6 is realistic for the Raiders in this upcoming draft. Here he is, Proto from Vancouver.
Hey, Q, what up? This is YTD33 from up north. I just wanted to say something about the draft. I know the draft is not for another month, but I just want to say something about it because people keep saying that Raiders going to draft Ashton Jeanty, and let me say why they won't. I know people say they'll draft him because he's good, and I'm not saying he's not good. They won't draft him because 6 is just not good value for a running back. And what I mean by that is, in today's NFL, you are only going to keep a running back around for 4 years. If you draft a running back in the first round, good, because you'll get the 5th-year option, and after the 5th year, they'll kind of be coming down on their career anyway, so you can just release them. But you don't want to do that at 6 because you need that 6 value. that 6 value gives you somebody you can keep on your team for the next 10 to 12 years. At 6, you're looking for a potential Hall of Famer on your team, and you just wouldn't draft a running back as a potential Hall of Famer. Because even if you draft, say, a wide receiver at 6, and they don't really pan out, you can still kind of trade them to get something back. But for a running back, no one's going to trade you for a running back that doesn't work, that didn't work on your team. So I really think it makes more sense for the Raiders to go O-line, keep building that O-line, and draft a running back in the second. This idea of Gentry at 6 is so bizarre to me. I just don't know who thinks that the Raiders should do this. It makes zero sense. We're not anywhere near needing a running back to win a game. Having a better O-line gives us a much better shot at winning that. And at 6, you can probably still find the number 1 tackle in the draft. My main point is this. Gentry is good, but Gentry is in long-term contract good because you don't do that for running backs. Yes, Saquon is good, but Saquon is good, and, you know, after the Giants kind of let him go, he got even better. But again, at 6, that's just not good value. So I do not think the Raiders are going to draft Gentry at 6. It doesn't make any sense at all. Even if the Raiders trade down, I still don't think Gentry will be a good pick. Honestly, get a running back in the second if you're really desperate for a running back. Because for running backs, the 50-year option doesn't really matter anyways. Because if the running back is good, you'll sign them to a 1 or 2 year. If they're not good, you'll just let them go to another team. So again, Gentry at 6 is just really bad value, even if he's the best running back in the draft. Thank you.
Proto, thanks for the call. Appreciate you. And look, I get it. I get why folks are talking about Gentry at 6. You've heard my conversation. I think that the Raiders have more holes to fill, and that's why it wouldn't be a good decision at 6. But I mean, it's not out of the question. It's not saying that it can't happen. I mean, even you heard Harry Douglas in segment number 2 when I asked him, sounds like you would have no problem with Gentry at number 6. He said no. The one thing that really does stand out to me, though, and I know this for a fact because I've talked to Ashton Gentry multiple times, dude's a stand-up dude. So not only are you getting a really good player, and that's what the key is, right? You want to build your roster full of just really great talent. Not only is he a really great talent, but he's also a hell of a dude. Could turn into a hell of a leader. This is a guy that was at Boise State, had the option to go to many different schools, and he stayed at Boise State. He could have transferred like everyone else is doing. He could have gone from Boise State to, say, Ohio State or somewhere like that. He chose to stay at Boise State with his teammates. Right. And so there's something to be said about that in the world of college football now where everyone is moving. Everyone's in the transfer portal. And I don't blame them. Like, I mean, you go for opportunity, you go for NIL, you go for whatever the case may be. Whatever suits you, you have to do. But I also could respect what Ashton Gentry said. No, I'm going to stick there at Boise State. They gave me my opportunity. They're going to get the best out of me. And he gave them everything he had. So there's something to be said about that. So as much as I think that other spots need to be filled before you just go running back, especially in a very deep running back draft, I understand the conversation for Gentry at 6. I just, for me, in my mind, I see a quarterback at 6. If available, you take him. And if he's not, well, then the conversation is open, and you can go in a couple different directions, including Ashton Gentry. But I do appreciate the call, and I do understand why you would say, yeah, thanks, but no thanks. I totally understand it because I've been in that same boat in that same conversation. Do appreciate you. Up next, got a text from Israel from Kentucky. He says, hey, Q, it's Israel from Kentucky. Love the podcast. Listen every day. I do think the Raiders will need to take a quarterback. I don't envision Shador sitting behind Geno for 2 to 3 years. And also, if Pete Carroll's only coaching for 3 more years, why do you want your first-round pick to maybe not even be able to be available by the time you're done coaching? To me, it feels like we should take Milroe. I know he's not a great passer, but I think with him sitting 2 or 3 years and working on his game, he could be a stud. He's built like Jalen Hurts, but runs like Anthony Richardson. I can see him being a beast in a few years. Would love to take Gentry or Graham. If those 3 aren't there, trade back. Thanks, Q, and go Raiders. That's Israel from Kentucky. Thanks so much for the text. I appreciate you. And yeah, Shador might not be there. And even if he is, I can still see him grabbing him and sitting behind Geno for a year. I don't think 2 or 3 years. You're absolutely right. I can see him sitting there for a year, and maybe that's why an extension is not done. Like, we talked about that in segment number 1. That could be a reason why the extension is not done either. They're trying to figure out what they want to do. Maybe they're only going to give him a 1-year extension, right? I mean, look, we don't know until we know, until it's all set in stone and they let us know what is exactly going on. When it comes to Milroe, again, I'm a big Alabama fan. Everyone that listens to this show for any kind of time knows that. I just don't trust him to be able to play the quarterback position. Jalen Hurts was a lot better at this stage of the game at the quarterback position than Milroe, and he had a lot of room to still grow, and he did that. I know Milroe has a hell of a work ethic, so I don't doubt that he's going to, give everything he's got, but his intermediate to short passes are not there, and if he turns the ball over, a lot of times he gets in his head. It might just be confidence. He might just need to get some confidence, right? Because you saw him start to just, like I said, he would start to fold at times when things didn't go very well. So they've got to find a way for him to get out of his own head and just go ahead and put everything together. I think there's a few options that the Raiders can get. If they don't go, say, Shador at 6, they can go Milroe. They can go Jackson Dart if he's available. They can go Dylan Gabriel if they like him. They can get any of these guys. Geno allows them to be able to get a guy and let him sit. They don't have to rush him onto the field, which is the good thing. Geno can get the start. They can still have the competition, right? Because you want to have that ultimate competition. They can still battle it out, but you can feel comfortable with Geno Smith as a starter. And, don't forget, Aiden O'Connell's still in the mix, right? He's still part of the mix. He's still part of the team, and he'll be part of that quarterback competition as well. So we'll see. I wouldn't have a problem with Mason Graham at number 6 either. Make the Raiders defense that the strength even stronger. There's nothing wrong with that either. So they have options. That's for sure. Thanks so much for the text. I do appreciate you. Up next, got a call from Cali Raider from Central Coast. He's calling to ask about the quarterback position behind Geno Smith. Here he is, Cali Raider.
Hey, Q. It's Cali Raider here on the Central Coast. Just trying to see what your opinions are. If you got Geno Smith pretty much grabbing any second-round quarterback, Dart, Milroe, Ewers, literally anyone, and put them 3 years under Geno. It would be kind of like a Jordan Love situation or so many of those good quarterbacks that have come back from monitoring and sitting on the bench. And then that could be the next guy's quarterback after Pete. Pete can finish with Geno, and we have a nice 10-year quarterback ready to go. There are contract implications of having a guy sit for 4 years and then have him start, or have a guy sit 3 years and have him start. Either ways, I really appreciate your show. I've been listening to Locked On every single day for 3 years. Thanks, Q.
Thank you for the call, my man. Yeah, look, Dart, Milroe, Ewers, not so much. Gabriel, right? All those guys are options. I don't know about Quinn Ewers. I know that he's been a name that's been talked about quite a bit ever since he arrived in Austin, but I don't see him as that guy. One, he gets injured quite a bit. Two, he gets rattled, and I don't think that he's a franchise quarterback. I actually thought he was going to go and transfer. I thought he was going to go to North Carolina and be there with Bill Belichick and get a nice NIL deal. He chose to go to the NFL. I thought that was a bad decision. I don't think he's NFL ready. I wouldn't pursue Quinn Ewers at all. But I mean, that's just me. And again, like I've been saying, they could still draft a quarterback as high as number 6, right? They can go second round or they can go number 6, right? But they do need to get into a habit of drafting quarterbacks until they find their franchise guy. And then after that, they still need to be in the habit of drafting quarterbacks. I'm not saying you have to go and get one every single year or spend high draft capital on it each and every year, but you should continue to address the quarterback position. You don't want to be in a position like you're in, like the Steelers are in, like the Giants are in, like the Browns are in, where they're in a situation where they're, like who's going to be the quarterback. You don't know. And the good thing for the Raiders is that they made that trade for Geno Smith. So at least they know, okay, right now, Geno Smith is the guy. For the future, we don't know. But that's better than these other teams, like I mentioned, the Giants, the Steelers, and even the Cleveland Browns at this stage of the game. So thanks so much for the call. Definitely appreciate you. Up next, got a text from 360 Raider. Good morning, Q. 360 Raider here. I was going over the defensive roster in preparation for the upcoming draft. I was curious your thoughts on something. What do you think about moving Jones inside to the slot? JB and Stokes on the outside, Jones in the slot, Chin and Palomar roaming the backfield. Sounds interesting. Have a good one, Q. That's from 360 Raider. Now, that's some good conversation right there. That is some really good conversation. I think that there's going to be some good competition for Jack Jones, period. Moving him inside, especially after the loss of Nate Hobbs, is not necessarily a bad idea, right? We know that the guy, when he gets his hands on the ball, he could be a really productive dude. And especially gets his hands on the ball, he could take it to the house, right? We've seen him do that more times than not the last couple seasons, more than anyone else, right? I mean, he got, two to the house in 2023 when he arrived with the Raiders and one last year. The guy, we know once he gets his hands on the ball, what he can do with it, right? And the slot corner is a really tough one, really tough. I mean, you just don't know which direction that these guys are going to go. At least the boundary corner, you've got the help of the boundary there. But if he's up for it, I can see him at least competing. I think that he's going to be very much challenged for his job with Pete Carroll and company. He's going to have to do a lot of things better than he did in 2024 to be able to hold on to his job. So we'll see. I like Jack Jones. I like the mentality of going and getting the ball and doing something with it, but he gave up a lot in 2024. So he's going to have to get a lot better, and he's going to definitely be challenged in a major way by this coaching staff, Pete Carroll and company. So, even if he doesn't move inside to the slot, I can see him, Stokes, others battling it out for those outside boundary cornerback jobs. So thanks so much for the text. I do appreciate you. Got a call from Tadreese in New Jersey. He's calling about the lack of movement on the offensive side of the ball as far as free agency goes, and makes a lot of sense about it as he brings up serious, unserious, and for entertainment purposes only. Here's Tadreese in New Jersey.
Yo, Q, what's going on? It's Tadreese from New Jersey. Hey, man, your shows have been awesome. Last Thursday, you were hype. You were on fire in segment 2, I think it was. But I'm calling today in response to last Friday's call and just reminding our fans, all right, this is a serious team now. So Raider Eddie from Hollywood, Florida, he has concerns because we didn't address the offense. I just want to remind us now, let's become serious fans. These guys made the big move with the quarterback, Geno Smith. We don't need to go out and sign diva wide receivers right off the bat, right? We do remember Randy Moss, Antonio Brown. What a circus. That was for entertainment purposes only, and it was terrible entertainment at that. And to some extent, even Devontae Adams, as much as he loved being a Raider, he still went on that show. There was some shade thrown, all the things, right? So we think about Tom Brady as an owner as well. The Patriots wasn't going out getting splashy wide receivers. Yeah, they brought Randy Moss over. They would take other teams, junk as it were, and pay them low and get good performance from them. And even when they got Randy Moss, they didn't win the Super Bowl that year. I love how Jackson, the call from Friday, Jackson, he's showing to be a serious fan. Guys, let's become serious fans. And no shade to Raider Eddie, because I know he's a serious fan too. He's going to be, but I'm just saying, let's not be unserious fans. Let's be not for entertainment only. And let's put faith in this new coaching staff. And this GM is on fire right now, guys. He's a serious guy. And Jackson referring to the Eagles, Howie Roseman brought over Bond on a 1-year prove-it deal. He showed out, and now they paid him because he did. They didn't just go pay him like this other team paid Spillane. He didn't even really prove anything. He came from a 4-13 loss team. Come on, guys, that's not serious. We're making serious moves. Thanks for all you do, Q. Just win, baby.
Tadreese, thanks for the call. Appreciate you. It's easy not to see the movement that you expect to see, especially when a team has a lot of money in free agency and say, well, what in the world's going on? But, again, getting back to what you said about serious, unserious, and entertainment purposes only, the teams that really go and spend a ton of money, like the Patriots, they spend a ton of money in free agency. I don't think anyone thinks that they're going to be real serious, right? I know Mike Vrabel, that's a really good coach, what he was able to do in Tennessee, but I don't think anyone's really worried right now at this stage of the game what the Patriots are going to look like. They've got a lot of questions. They're winning March. That's fantastic for them. Right now, the Vikings, they spent some good money, but they're a really good team already, so they were able to go and fill some holes. The Bills as well, I give them credit. As a team that's really good, they made some, I thought, smart decisions this offseason with their money, including extending their quarterback when they really didn't need to. But outside of that, the other teams that are spending a ton of money don't necessarily, make the right decisions. And it seems like the Raiders are being very selective with who they bring into the organization from outside and even guys that they re-sign. It seems like they're being very, very selective. So thanks so much for the call. Great reference there to the serious, unserious, and for entertainment purposes only. We'll close out with a text from Tono from Galt. Hey, Q, it's Tono from Galt. As much as I love watching Genty play this season, I feel like T-Mac would be a smarter move at 6 if we're going to go for a weapon. T-Mac is the wide receiver from Arizona, McMillan. Worst case, we can target someone like Henderson in the second who's capable of playing 3 downs, or even get a guard in the second and Scatterboo in the third. If we went Genty first, I feel like we'd have to either make a move in free agency for a wide receiver and possibly a guard to make it make sense. Due to our lack of depth at wide receiver and that Myers is getting up in age, we'll need a new contract. T-Mac feel like the move we'd be leaning towards at the moment. Finally, what's your sentiment on McCord? I watched him play. To me, he looks like he's probably the 3rd best quarterback in the draft. I'd take him over Dart personally. I like Melrose' deep ball ability, but McCord is far more accurate intermediately. Would you be willing to take him in the third, possibly the fourth, if we could steal him that late? Thanks for your time. I feel like I speak for the nation. We love the content you put out and helping keep us informed with good insight. Keep up the good work. That's Tono from Galt. Thank you for the text. I do appreciate you. And yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I'm glad you brought up the wide receiver position, because now that, DK Metcalf is obviously in Pittsburgh, they traded for him. We see other wide receivers. Devontae Adams, obviously with the Rams, he wasn't going to return to the Raiders anyway. He was one of the best ones out there. You only have guys like Stephon Diggs, Amari Cooper, right? You saw what happened with the deal for Cooper Kupp. He got a 3-year, $45 million deal from Seattle, so he's off the board. I wasn't real high on him anyway, but everyone's got warts, right? Everyone's got warts or getting up there in age. So the best case scenario, I do believe that Tyler Lockett's going to be eventually added, but they haven't added him yet, and they could have added him a long time ago, so maybe not, right? And Pete Carroll knows him the best. It does feel like that they're going to have to go get a wide receiver in the draft to go ahead and continue to build that wide receiver room. Obviously, I like Jacoby Myers a lot. We all look at Brock Bowers as a big-time weapon, but he's literally a tight end. So Trey Tucker is not a consistent wide receiver. So they're definitely going to have to do something. McMillan from Arizona very easily could end up being the choice, right? And then the other wide receivers are probably going to go off the board, say, second round or third round. There's a couple guys out there that could be available, but it's not like it was a year ago. So you could be onto something with T-Mac there maybe at number 6. And that's why I've been talking about Genty and not getting him at number 6 is because of what you said, right? You mentioned multiple running backs, right? Henderson, Scatterboo, just to name a few, right? I mean, they've got Judkins, right? They've got plenty of different running backs in this draft. It's a very deep draft for that position. Hampton, right? I think he's going to be a first-round running back. So that's another reason why I say that maybe Genty at 6 is too high for a team like the Raiders when they do have other holes to fill. As far as looking at Kyle McCord, I mean, he's a good quarterback, I should say. I almost said wide receiver. He's a good quarterback. He could definitely be in the mix. I know he's not one that we talk about quite a bit, but he definitely could be in the mix. Right there, I saw him up close and personal when he played at Allegiant Stadium this past year. So I saw what he's able to do. He could be a really good quarterback and be a guy that sits behind Geno Smith as well. So there's options at the quarterback position, right? And so the Raiders are going through their notes right now. They're going through the film. They're deciding what makes sense and what doesn't make sense for the organization, again, to make serious decisions, not unserious, not for entertainment purposes only, but serious decisions moving forward. And that's what's going to make the next, I don't know, a little bit over a month leading up to the draft. April 24th, I believe, is the first day in Green Bay. It's going to be a really interesting time between now and then to see, how everything ramps up, what this Raiders roster looks like, and what they ultimately end up doing at number 6 or wherever they end up picking at. That's where they're slotted to pick at right now, but they could always move up. They can stay at 6 or they can move back. So we'll continue to monitor everything from the news and notes, free agency, the roster, how it's being put together, continue to pay attention for a Geno Smith possible contract extension. It might be already here, right? I mean, by the time you wrap up this show, it might be already talking about what the Geno Smith contract extension actually looks like. It's just as of Sunday night, it had not come to fruition just yet. Today is St. Patrick's Day, so have a fun but safe St. Patty's Day. And of course, we'll be back tomorrow with more news and notes, more calls and texts, and of course, plenty of information, plenty of conversation as we do each and every day here on the Locked On Raiders podcast. So until tomorrow, Raider Nation, take care of yourself, take care of your family, love on your family. Most importantly, as always, just win, baby.